kicked it. Ready to rock, sir? Ready to rock? Ready to rock. Right. So, here we go. Welcome back to the Biblical Banter Podcast. This is episode number 5. And today we're going to be speaking on the greatest commandment and going into the Q&A question after that. So answering one of the questions from Instagram. So,
let's get started. Alright, so we'll do a bit of a reading. I guess this is our first time kind of trying to get a bit of scripture onto the podcast, trying to figure out how those segments will work. So,
yes.
Yeah, so we'll take it line by line. If you want to tell us where we're at.
Yes, so Mark chapter 12, verses 30 to 31 says, "And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbour as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these."
Right.
So we are.
So start with the first verse.
First verse, yeah.
Love your God with all your heart.
Love your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength.
Mm-hmm. So I think it'd be important to really take a wee bit of a dive into what it actually means to love God.
Yep.
Because it's very easy to say that, but what that actually means is quite particular.
Right.
So I was going to ask you to see yours first, and then I was going to jump
right.
in and be
okay.
a
So
what
I feel like loving God is. So loving God, it's not as easy as everyone thinks. Very difficult thing to actually do on a day-to-day life, especially if you're going through something in your life. It's a lot more difficult. You tend to, well, at least in my personal experience anyway, I'm very much one that was back in the day that I would have shouted and sort of accused God of like causing these issues for me, like being like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this to me? Just like, why me? What have I done? Mm-hmm. So for a very long time, I felt like I was being punished by God, which is like an accidental crisis.
Yeah,
but anyway,
that's a bad.
It's
a bad thing.
Yeah, so loving God can be quite difficult. But at the same time, depending on who you've got surrounded around you, if you're going consistently, you're going to church and you're reading your Bible and you have those people around you that you're talking to, becomes a good bit easier because you've got those people that have that same mindset as you. They've got that sort of same drive as the wanting to know God more, to love God and going to Him for answers. Depending on what your situation is. So, how do you even go about loving God?
Well,
is the question.
Yeah, that's
it's like,
the thing. So I wanted to say as well,
the only thing I can think of is like praise is a one way of showing your love to Him, and verbally to saying it through prayer as well, I guess.
I think it's really good during prayer to say that you do love Him.
Yeah.
But I think as well, it's important to actually understand what we mean by love in the first place. So God invites us to love Him with all our heart. And it's like, well, I mean, how do you love someone in general? And I think a good way of thinking about it would be like, to love someone generally means, right, that you are willing to sacrifice.
I was about to say, there's some form of sacrifice.
You're going to sacrifice and compromise, right? Yeah. And this is actually something that you see. See, the thing is, you always hear about how God loves us. God is love. God loves us.
Yeah, the greatest sacrifice.
Yeah. Well, look at the Old Testament, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know God loves us from it because He continuously compromises with the Israelites.
Yeah.
He's constantly, like, even some, like, where's the verse? Remember where Jesus says about how, he's talking about divorce or something.
Uh-huh.
And he says about how, they're like, oh, but, with the law of Moses, we were able to, given this and that.
Yeah.
And then Jesus says, yes, but from the beginning it wasn't so.
Yes.
In other words, God was actually compromising with His people and giving them stuff that wasn't the fulfillment of the law, which is what Jesus comes to do in the first place.
Yeah.
But the fact, I always find that so funny, the idea that, God, who created everything,
Mm-hmm.
was willing to compromise with us, just like to make it a bit easier on us. I think that's love, right? The fact that God would even, like, he's no reason to. He shouldn't have to, but he did. And so when we're invited to, and we are invited because we don't have to, we're not forced to. We have to sacrifice our will and ego, and put his will first. I think that's really what it means, because that's what it means to love someone with all your heart, isn't it? Isn't it? It's to sacrifice for them, but in this instance, it's God. So going a bit further than that.
It was like, not to go off like way off track, but this is the autism kicking back in. But I think it was Bob Marley. Actually said, Bob Marley actually said something that was like, love isn't about like finding the perfect person or whatever. It's like finding that person that you're willing to sacrifice something for. So it was something along them lines anyway. Then what was I going to say? So I think it was Moses as well. He's about to like lead the people across the Red Sea and all. And, he goes up to the mountain. And by that point, whenever he's up to the top of the mountain, they've already made an idol then like below, and God's like speaking, and he's just like, well, I've already done this here. Like, he's going to cast them into fire or whatever. And Moses is like, come, hold on. Like, let me chat to him first. He's like, all right, okay. So you're looking at that and you're just like, God has reasoned with a man.
Well, I know, but this is not a really important thing to point out.
Where it's like, oh, hold on
when
a second.
God says that he was going to do the punishment, God said that to give Moses a chance to then defend. God already knew what was going to happen. So I think that's a way to think about it. It's like God's going, here's your chance to bargain with me. The fact that he's even willing to is because he loves us. And because of that, we have to love him properly. And to love him is to sacrifice our will for his. I just find it so amusing, the idea that he would actually reason with a man.
Bargain. Just like
God will reason with you. Like, really?
It's just like, you know what, like, like, it just comes down and speaks to you like a normal man. It's like it's got a sense of humour. He knows fine right what's going on. It's just like, you know what, I'm gonna make you think like you've got a choice here, to be honest. There's going back to that, I guess, like the Orthodox side of things too, where they're like, as you're saying, like in their services, where the traditionally like they're meant to stand there because it's like you're sacrificing that, like
voluntary discomfort.
So it's like you're sacrificing like your comfort.
That's fasting, isn't it?
That's fasting as well.
That's fasting. It's that let me show you how much I love you. And that's
I'm
the
willing
thing.
to give up this thing that I'm like addicted to or like I need.
That's the thing. God doesn't invite us into a master-slave relationship. That's not what he does. No. God actually invites us to participate with, let's say, the right pattern of being, let's say, right? Something like that. And that's actually what he's doing. And he's saying, we can have a relationship. That's why, sure, if you're a Christian, you're often called child of God.
You're child of God,
You're not called, anything other than that. And it's because he's your Father in heaven.
Yes.
And then you can see that relationship. Jesus constantly plays that out between praying to the Father, and Jesus is God, but he's still doing it. So what he's trying to show you is, here's the right relationship, here's the right pattern that we're meant to be involved with, with God. But absolutely, that's really what that's about. And that's why a lot of people, I think, can read that and just be like, all right, okay, so I just have to love him. It's like, what does that mean? You have to actually act.
It goes very deep.
Goop's going and going.
Oh. So it's like, if you think about it in terms of, like, we're saying that we need a sacrifice. Obviously, I'll go back. The greatest sacrifice.
Jesus.
Yeah. He's praying. And he's just like, I actually have to do this. Like, I'm not comfortable with this. He's sweating blood. I think we mentioned this in the last podcast as well. He's sweating blood. Like, he really doesn't want to be there. God's like, I got that.
Have to go.
Got that. And he's just like, okay.
Like, God wasn't just willing, like, God came down in in the incarnation
Yeah.
and died
Yes.
because of us. Like, he knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I think, it's very, very easy, as you say. Remember what you mentioned about how you can get really angry at God sometimes, be like, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
Why do I have to go through this?
Yeah.
But we also need to remember that God literally came down and died for us.
Yeah.
You know, he has suffered. He has been through it.
Mm-hmm.
There's something you can get from the cross because of that.
Mm-hmm.
This idea that he's so humble and that loving that he would come down, become a man. So like that's God becoming man, and then voluntarily suffering and dying for us.
Yeah.
That's love, and we're called to do the same back. I mean, surely wasn't pretty much everyone except John met the most terrible death, the apostles.
Everyone but John. John was like thrown into exile. He was like,
I on Patmos. Wasn't
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Yes,
So he
that's
was like, he was
Revelations.
sort of kicked out. He was the only one that died of like old age, natural causes. And then there was Judas as well. He killed him. He killed himself.
Yeah. The rest of
them met like pretty gruesome, stoned to death, beheaded, crucified.
There was a lot of crucifixions actually.
You know, that was a standard thing back then.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
it was.
It was just a normal.
Absolutely.
It was just a normal thing.
And again, you know, they did that because they loved God.
Yeah.
That's what loving God looks like,
Yeah.
and it's not easy. Like,
and if anything, maybe actually had suffered a bit more. It was like getting crucified upside down. I'd say that's probably
that's bad.
I'd say it's a bit worse than like, you know what I mean. Obviously, there's all the rest of it, like, but they obviously went through there knowing that they were going to die, and still went along with it anyway. That's loving God.
That's what loving God is, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what he would do for us.
Yeah.
Has done for us. So, yeah.
Yep.
So, what's the second half?
Second half. So this is verse 31. The second is this: you shall love your neighbour as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. So you should love your neighbour as yourself, which is something that you hear, and it's something like that is spoke about actually quite a bit, but is very rarely followed through.
Yeah, so I think, see what's absolutely unbelievable about that.
I'd say also that whenever it's said it's your neighbour, it's not actually just talking about like who's living next door. It's talking about.
Oh no, it's talking about everyone.
Yeah.
You see, the thing is, what's unbelievable about those two being the two commandments is that it's so simple, but it's so deep at the same time. Mm-hmm. I mean, if everyone treated everyone else like they wanted to be treated,
yeah,
there'd be in like literally probably world peace in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it seems so straightforward, but it's not. I feel like one of the terrible things that we do as people is just treat other people, well, let's say we project things on the other people that we don't like about ourselves.
Yeah, so you would see that a very common thing in terms of bullying.
Yeah, bullying would be an example.
Yeah, so like they're getting a bad at home or whatever, and like so the only way that they can sort of release their emotion that they're like wanting to do is physically, which is if you're wanting to go down the whole Jordan Peterson side of things, like physical bullying is a lot more commonly known in males.
Yeah,
but like psychological, sort of mental, sort of reputation destruction is in women.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's two different types of things, but it's always revolving around. There's usually something else that's going on inside the person.
Well, all those things is a different way of. I mean, the process by which you're causing harm doesn't matter as much as what's motivating you to do it. You know, so the motivations can be the same, but the ways we do it could be different, let's say.
Yeah.
And that's really what's going on there. But we do often treat people almost the opposite of the way we want to be treated because of how we can feel about ourselves. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that Christianity obviously offers you sort of tells you you're actually a sinner and we're all sinners. Yeah. And because of that, we all have to actually be forgiven and work towards, you know.
Yeah. Something that came into my head was turn the other cheek.
That's so hard to do.
Right.
It's so simple, but again, it's so hard to do.
It came into my head for like bullying reasons. You're getting bullied. The last thing you're wanting to do is just be like, whatever. So what I'm trying to get to, what the main point I'm trying to get to is 9 times out of 10, someone's getting bullied. The bully gets sent down to the headmaster's office or whatever, gets reprimanded, usually shouted at, scolded at. That's probably what they're getting at home.
Yeah.
So it's just repetitive. But if you're turning the other cheek, you show this person love, care, and attention, which is what they're needing. They're going to go about things differently. They're lacking that love and care. That
you're actually hitting on a really important point. I believe there's a book by Dostoevsky, and in it, I think it's called the Grand Inquisitor or something like that.
I was ringing a bell to be fair.
Yeah, it's one of those. There's an interesting bit. So Christ is actually in that book, I believe. I'm pretty sure this is how it goes. And he's being accused, obviously, and he's sent down to the jail cell.
Yeah.
And the Inquisitor comes down and he's just hammering Christ. I'm pretty sure in the book he's going on about, why are bad things happening if you're God, you love us.
That's standard.
Yeah, that usual one, which is pretty much what we're talking about. But he's hammering away and accusing. Getting more and more ridiculous, more and more wound up. And Christ just doesn't say anything. He just sits in the cell quietly.
Yeah.
And then a little bit baffled by this, expecting a full debate, because he's gone down there blood red, ready for a good big debate, good big argument with God himself. Doesn't get anything. And then eventually he opens the jail cell for Christ. And all Jesus does in this instant is he just comes out and kisses the Inquisitor on the cheek. And the Inquisitor just goes, just get out of here.
Yeah.
And he just leaves. That's all that happens. And I feel like that's kind of what you're getting at. It's this idea of like, what with that fulfillment of the law and those commandments you're given, it's the love that God wants to show even the worst of us.
Yeah.
And we're expected to do the same thing. And by doing that, you can break cycles. It's like, bully. But if someone just turns the other cheek and says, I know
you're hurting, like, what's wrong with you? They'll be like,
it's overwhelming. It's like,
reverse card.
It's like pure reverse card. But the strength it takes, I think the strength it takes to do that is to actually love God in the first place.
Yeah.
And then I think someone who's capable of doing that loves God without even knowing it.
Right, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you have to have such faith in the truth and in love and in kindness that you believe what you know.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah. It's like something I've seen before where it was something being mentioned that was like, what about people who don't actually know Jesus and God is saying like, oh, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, So taking that verse and they're just like, well, obviously people who don't know Jesus, how do they get to heaven? And someone came up, it was just like, it's based on the knowledge that you know as well. So God is merciful. He's graceful. Like, he's going to judge you based on the knowledge that you know. So if someone looks up and sees the stars, this is me quoting this famous, like, this street pastor guy goes out and he's in the street and he's like, you look up at the stars or whatever and it's like, there's something mightier than I has done this. So like, it goes off of that is sort of what I'm linking that to, is what you were saying. Another thing, there was actually a guy who was speaking on the sort of Palestine-Israel war thing, which I'm not going to get into politically, but he was saying it was something very interesting where it was just like, if someone comes into the hospital who's broken, they're a broken person, they've got something wrong with them, they're sick, they need healing, they fix them. You're not going to be able to, like, if the doctor walks in and starts hitting them, I was like, fix, like, what's wrong? Get better. Like, what's wrong with you? Why are you not getting better? Like, that's not going to fix someone. You need to give them that care and attention and, like, actually aid them and, like, walk them through this process. Sort of like trying to hammer something into them isn't going to...
It reminds me of something Paul
says.
I
think is sort of leads into sharing the gospel as well.
Yeah.
My personal opinion, like, these street preachers, like, that's sort of gone past. Like, I don't really feel that there's much of a place for that anymore. because people are just sort of walking past it. The people are seeing it more as a nuisance anymore.
Now, and I feel like, though to be fair, I have seen some really good street preachers who've actually managed to convert people on the spot.
It's usually Americans.
It is usually Americans, to be fair. I don't think it happened over here.
No, so like anytime I've ever seen over here, like Belfast and whatever, it's like people they're just more annoyed. They're trying to go to Primark and they don't care.
Yeah, they're trying to go to Primark or McDonald's or something.
Like they don't care. So it's like sort of trying to forcefully put it into people's ears isn't the way to do it.
No.
You need to sort of, it's like giving the people the information and letting them go and take that time to try and understand it themselves and let them come back to you.
Like what you did with me.
You give me you come to me with a question, I give you an answer, and I just let you sort of be with it.
You wouldn't hammer more into me, and you went to back off.
Yeah, I would give you the answer, and then I just leave it at that. Yeah. Just like if you come back from what you do, like there's a time and a place for everything. If you're wanting to go and like speak things at people, that's what church is for. Like that's what going there. That's what going to listen to a sermon is. Yeah. But if like you're trying to get the gospel out to people, you need to sort of drip feed it.
Yeah, it's a drip feed.
Yeah.
And to be fair, you can just use, online. That's the easiest way to get the young people anyway, if you want to spread the gospel. But you're right, sharing the gospel is in essence an act of love, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's you saying, you don't even know you need this, but I'm going to try. At the expense of you probably thinking I'm nuts for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And it's going back to that sacrifice. You're sacrificing your sort of, like you're humiliating yourself. You're putting that, not humiliating yourself, but you're putting that yourself in that place of discomfort.
Vulnerability.
Vulnerability is the word I'm looking for.
Because you're opening up to your most core beliefs. And
you're making yourself this vulnerable person in front of someone else you've never known before, and you're like, there.
Yeah.
And so that, like, most people are going to turn around and be like, leave me alone. Stop. Like, you're another one of them.
You're
like
those crazy Christians that. Yeah.
But so I think Christians get. I think people and like Christianity in general get a bad rap, especially when they're trying to share the gospel or whatever, because they do go about it in such elaborate ways.
And I think as well, especially nowadays, it's like this with absolutely everything now. But the only things that will go viral are the exceptions to nearly every rule. And so if you can get like one video of one Christian being nuts, all of a sudden every Christian's that way.
Yeah.
And there's some, this is why we did the megachurch episode and all that there.
Yeah.
Was to talk about how these kind of huge types can tarnish everything. Yeah. But then when we bring it down to the core message like we're doing there, love's at the absolute core of it.
Yeah. It's
not making money. It's not.
Yeah. It's your love for God.
Yeah, it's love for God. And you can see that. See when someone actually loves God, it fires off them. In every direction.
Yeah.
And
you can feel them coming.
Yeah, yeah.
Someone walks into the room and you're just like, like that guy, yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's something about it.
Yeah.
There's this real, taking it back to the Orthodox side of things, there was I can't remember which saint it was. I believe it was Saint Gabriel, the Fool for Christ. There's a video of him anyway. It's weird now. You get videos of saints now because you never used to do that. Way back before there was cameras and all. Yeah. You get videos of them now. And see whenever you see them, the eyes, like you can tell they are on a different plane of existence than the rest of us, and the amount of love and care and attention that they had in life,
just dedicating their lives to God.
But you get this almost. I don't know if this is just me being a wee bit nuts, but when I look at them, you can see that God kind of loves them too. It's like this mutual relationship smacking up and down, and you can see it just radiating out of them, and even how they look and how they hold themselves and the way, as I say, even just looking at their eyes, you can just tell they're fundamentally different to the rest of us. They're really set apart. I'd recommend, I believe it's Saint Gabriel, the Fool for Christ. If you look it up, there is videos of him, but I think it's the saint I'm thinking of.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it might be Saint Paisos I'm actually thinking of, but it's one of the two. It's worth looking up just to see the video of it. Even if you're more on the Protestant side of things and you you don't believe in saints and all, it's still worth looking up because he's still a holy guy. Like, he still loved God and all that there. So it's really worth looking up. It was really cool. And his story's pretty cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah,
I was going to say something after you before you went on your tangent.
Before I went on my rant, yeah, something like that.
Before your tangent, what was I going to say? Aye, so you see it as well with these people that have this love for God and they do truly love God, and you know that they do. And the reason why you know that is you can see that in churches, the elderly, they're starting to get that bit more frail, like, or whatever. I don't want to go into too much detail because it'll be going off people that are from the church. Yeah, so it's like people are getting a bit more frail. They're needing sort of aids to help them through whatever, or they are very, very sick and they've got like some form of like terminal illness or whatever. But they're still at church every Sunday. It doesn't matter like what's wrong with them. It's like they're getting to church. And if they can't get to church, they're watching it online. They're doing something, and they've always got a smile on their face. Doesn't matter how bad it is. They're always smiling. They're like, I'm happy to be here. The fact that I'm here, I'm like, they're happy to be here.
Yeah,
it's just like they don't take life as just, they see it as the blessing is what it is, and they know fine rightly that even though they're sick, doesn't matter what the outcome is. Because they have lived this life, they're just like, what's there to be sad about? They do see it as a sort of like celebration of that I've lived this life, but now I am going to this like better place.
And the endurance that a love of God can give you is insane.
Yeah,
like when you have that kind of level of faith and you've got that, it will give you that power and that endurance to really get through the worst bits of life. And we've all been there when just pretty much everything that could go wrong goes wrong.
Oh, that's whenever I started literally cursing them, and I was just like, I was like, what? Why me? Yeah. But I always find whenever you start doing that, it means me personally looking back on it now and being able to reflect, it's like there's so much stuff that has went wrong. You don't know where to look or where to point. So the only logical thing you can do is point it to something that you don't completely yet understand. You're like, well, if everything's going wrong all at once, I don't understand it. So you've obviously got something to do with like with this because everything's just went wrong. Like you don't feel like you've like it's got absolutely nothing to do with the 19 steps that I made beforehand, and like every single turn has brought me to that point.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with
It's got absolutely nothing to do with that, but it's got everything to do with like, you know. Just like this one bad thing led to another, and it's your fault. And you're like,
no.
Looking back on it, you're just like, yeah, so probably apologize big time for that. So like, a lot of apologizing has been done, but I think that's a big thing where people find it really easy to pass the blame to God, even though that is on your own actions and you have that free will, you made those decisions.
Yeah.
So,
you know, if you stab yourself with a fork,
but then there's
why would you blame God for the pain?
Yeah. But then again, that just comes back to the love of God, where it's like, I did what I did, and I've been like, why have you done this to me? Blamed him on absolutely everything, turned my back on him. But every single time that I'd done that, it took like only a certain amount of weeks until I was getting called back to go back to the church again.
Yeah.
It's like he's always just like he's always there telling you to come back. It might take a wee bit of time because it's on his timing, I guess. But it's like you know, it just takes that wee bit of time or whatever until you can look back at it and be like, I was off my rocker there, like I was proper off my rocker. It's just like, so it's like I've had so many like bad things going on one time where you're like, your brain doesn't know where to think. So, yeah, if you want to go into it, it's just like the devil's got a grasp of me. Yeah, that's like his prime time. At that point where like you're at your lowest, he's just like happy days, feeding time. So,
well, I think I covered that pretty well.
Yeah,
that was good. Shall we do the question now?
We'll go into the question. And the question was, let me find her. Let me find her. Is it bad to take the Bible stories and context and boil it down into simple terms? No. No. It's one of those things where I think it very much depends on what it is. You need to be very careful about what it is as well. There's certain things that you can't boil down into simple terms. There's some things that need to be said the way they are. However, one thing that I would say where it's fine to sort of boil it down into simple terms is like the parables. If you're teaching it to kids, young kids,
if you're teaching the kids,
Sunday school, you need to boil it down. You need to simplify it, and that's where it's okay. And that's where it's like you need to sort of put it down like that, where it's saying like, "Oh, Noah's animals went in 2 by 2," and that like, do you know what I mean? It's something that's boiled down. It's easier for kids to remember, and it helps them understand the story. Now, if I went to a sermon in church, the pastor's up the front is like, "And the animals went in
2 by 2."
Yes, you're like, no, not right. So there's a line.
Yeah, there is.
But I don't see there being any sort of issue in terms of boiling it down. The stories, as it says here, the stories in context, boiling that down into sort of...
In context is like so key. Just nowadays, we ignore context all the time for the sake of just nothing.
Yeah. So you boiling the story down, but you're keeping it in context.
Yeah.
It's all good. But if you're boiling it down, you're like, you sent me a video earlier, and I was so triggered at it. Like,
yeah, I remember
this bloody female pastor. He's like going off the story of the prodigal son, saying that, oh, he went away, but it doesn't. And he says, whenever he came back, he said to the father, "Oh, I've sinned before you, and I've sinned, and I've sinned before you." And she's just like, he says that he sinned, but he doesn't say actually what he done. It's just like, right, well, you're reading this absolutely ludicrous Bible translation.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Going into the ESV, a few verses down after that, it literally says that he spent it on hookers. Well, it doesn't say hookers, but
it means that.
It says,
the bit I hated about that video, and just for some context, this is a video of one of these churches, which is, honestly, it's a church for atheists who are incredibly inclined into one political direction.
Yes.
And just want to go and have their beliefs affirmed every week instead of actually learning the gospel. And one of the things that this pastor actually said was that, talking about the lost sheep,
yes,
she said, I couldn't believe this. She said the shepherd needed the sheep more than the sheep needed the shepherd, and I nearly threw my phone out when I was like, again, we've talked about mega churches and that side of things. We might want to go into these corrupt churches because we need to talk about the state of these. Obviously, this is taking a wee bit away from the question, but there's a good example of, I think maybe it's not necessarily boiling the thing down wrong, it's like completely not having a clue what you're talking about.
Boiling it down would be saying the son said that he sinned to the father and sinned to himself.
Yeah.
Boiled it down. That's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
But then goes on to say, out of context, saying that, well, we don't know if he actually sinned or not, because he doesn't actually say, when realistically it says here, in verse, where are we? 30.
Mm-hmm.
But when the son of yours came and he has devoured our property with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him.
I know, it's
right there, Luke 15, verse 30. Verse 30.
Yeah.
Literally says right there. And that's obviously the parable of the prodigal son.
Yeah.
And then beforehand there was the lost coin, and she was saying, oh, the coin doesn't really need the person, and you're like, where are you going?
But again, I think that's more so like, if you can boil a story down and retain all the essential truths in it, awesome. In fact, that's a skill. In fact, I applaud you if you manage that. But if you're going to,
especially with parables,
if you're going to get the story wrong and not have a clue what you're talking about, and then boil that down, you're just serving a really crap version of something you didn't understand in the first place. And I just, no, absolutely not. We can't be doing that.
No.
And yeah. Another thing I think we'd like to announce, we're going to get better audio. If I got some feedback about it, I know it's not great.
Yeah, you keep tapping your feet, and that's half the problem.
No.
That's half the problem.
So
you hear that boom, 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 boom.
Well, we've got plans anyway to get better audio. And maybe see about... And then hopefully we can increase the camera quality as well. Have more storage space and stuff.
Yeah.
Recording 4K, things like that. Sounds good.
Yes.
So
4K and whatnot, better audio and stuff.
And stuff.
And things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then whenever the better weather starts coming in, hopefully we can get out other places and whatnot.
Yeah, that'll be good actually. Yeah,
and stuff.
And stuff. And potentialities.
Yeah.
And possibilities.
And make the podcast a bit more exciting.
Yeah.
And stuff.
And stuff.
Yeah.
Tism.
Yeah. Brian, do you want to wrap it up, or do you want to wrap it up?
Yep, let's wrap it up.
So episode 5. I mean, we're doing all right for ourselves. Didn't think I'd actually get this far. I thought we'd do one episode and absolutely burning this, be like, oh, this is awful. But people actually seem to be enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm actually getting messages about it. I honestly thought I'd just say something to get cancelled on like the first day.
Yeah,
but
so
somehow we're still breathing. So
still here.
Yeah, still here, still going. So we've got a lot more planned, and I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, so episode 6, don't know what it's going to be on. This episode was pretty much flung together last minute. Just sort of taking a verse that we've got highlighted in the Bible. Really enjoyed that episode actually, so I think we'll do that a lot more often.
That worked better. Yeah.
We'll probably put up something on Instagram again, seeing if anyone wants to hear about anything again, because I think that went down well. People liked hearing what they wanted to hear.
Yep.
And I guess that's us until next time.
Yep.
So we'll see you on the next one.